Remember King Kong? Of course you remember King Kong. Who can forget it? Remember Son of Kong? Yeah, I figured. It's okay, it's a forgettable movie, but let's talk about it. Son of Kong is the sequel to King Kong and came out in December of 1933, 9 months after the original film. It focuses on Carl Denham, once again played by Robert Armstrong, who is being sued for all the collateral damage that Kong has caused and all the debts that he was responsible for. So he, along with Captain Englehorn from the first movie, decided to go ship cargo to try to make money to A, have a living, and B, try to pay off all the debt towards the destruction caused by Kong. He's suddenly told by a mysterious and drunken captain, Hellstrom, that there exists a treasure on Skull Island. See, Hellstrom was the person who gave Carl Denham the map in the first place that led to Skull Island. So Carl Denham really wants nothing to do with it, but he is desperate for money, and when you're desperate for money, you do stupid things. So he eventually decides, you know what, let's go get the treasure from Skull Island, only to discover that there is a tiny albino gorilla who happens to be the son of Kong, hence the film's title. Son of Kong came out at a time when sequels were relatively new. Marion C. Cooper and Ernest Schoedsack wanted to make a sequel to King Kong, but RKO, the studio that produced and distributed King Kong, slashed the budget in half. They only got half the budget of the first movie, and they were told that it had to be released in December, which was only 9 months away. So that means they had to develop the movie, go into pre-production, production, and post-production, all within a 9-month span, and get it out in time for Christmas. Because Son of Kong came out at a time when sequels were relatively new, nobody really did a whole lot of sequels, and there was no TV or VCR, meaning you didn't have the luxury to rewatch these movies over and over again, or when they popped up on TV. The only way you were ever going to rewatch the original King Kong is if it got re-released in the theaters. RKO was worried that people would forget about King Kong, and that's one of the other reasons why the sequel came out so quickly, which was a big mistake because Son of Kong really is very underwhelming. It's not a bad movie. There are some really good things about it. I do like how it's much like Rocky 2, where rather than kind of repeating the first movie again, it feels like a natural continuation. It picks up right when the first movie left off, and kind of goes into the whole, well, what happens next? And I love how it follows Carl Denham, who kind of redeems himself from his selfish and greedy attitude that he had in the original King Kong, where he feels more genuine towards people, and he has some sympathy for the young Kong, mainly because he was kind of responsible for kidnapping Kong and bringing him to New York. So I do like how he gets some character development right there. But everything else about the movie is just kind of meh. It is truthfully a forgettable movie. And while it does have some cool things in it, like the stop motion is still fun to watch, even that has some problems because, again, this movie was made within a 9-month span. The stop motion looks really rushed, really choppy. Something out of those old Rankin Bass stop motion shorts like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And there are these really cartoony moments where the Son of Kong has these really over-the-top expressions, and it just doesn't feel completely authentic. I mean, making a sequel to King Kong already was a tough task. And you can tell that the filmmakers were trying. They really did try to make this movie as good as it could be, but ultimately it just didn't work out too well. Another problem is the length of the movie. It's an hour and 9 minutes, which barely qualifies as a feature-length runtime. And the problem with that is, while it is paced very well, we don't come back to Skull Island until the 40-minute mark, and we don't even see Son of Kong until 5 minutes later, which is really underwhelming and a letdown. But admittedly, there are some cool scenes to it, like there's a fight between Kong and a bear, which is actually pretty fun to watch. The stop motion is indeed rushed, but it is nice to see some new creatures. and some other mammals, because it seemed like in the first movie, Kong was only surrounded by dinosaurs and other reptiles. So it was cool to see another mammal on Skull Island. Another issue I had is that the other characters are just kind of bland, and the actors are just kind of meh as well. Robert Armstrong is the only one who sticks out, but everyone else is just very generic, doesn't have much to do that's really interesting, and probably the most bland is the actor who plays Hellstrom, John Marsden. Oh, if only it were that John Marsden. That would be awesome. But he is just very bland as an actor. And in terms of Hellstrom, you're supposed to hate this guy, or at least the movie's trying to build it up for you to hate this guy. But he's just so bland, there's nothing really to hate about him. It's just like, yeah, okay, he's an ass at times, but don't hate him, just bland. Now, as for Kong's son himself, he's not really given a name, but there are some points where you do kind of sympathize for him. Much like you sympathized with Kong in the first movie, Kong's son has a lot of facial expressions that are conveyed very well through the stop motion. But then other times, as I mentioned before, it gets way too cartoony, exaggerated, and there are also some points where Kong's son is kind of an idiot. It kind of falls into the realm of Minya stupidity or cuteness from Son of Godzilla. Another thing that really bugged me is that when they film on Skull Island, it seems like there was only one location that they're in on Skull Island, which is in front of this temple, and they don't really explore the rest of the island. They're just stuck in one location on Skull Island, and it doesn't make the island itself any more expansive. It's just kind of like you're stuck in this one area, and you kind of want to see the rest of the place, even if Skull Island is a shithole. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the ending, because the ending, when I saw this movie as a kid, actually made me cry, because the whole island starts to sink, and Kong is trying to save Carl Denham from drowning, but in turn he sacrifices himself, almost like Kong's son was returning the favor when Carl Denham saved him from quicksand. And as a kid, I remember crying at that part, because you just felt so sorry for this helpless ape, and it was just so sad. But watching it again, I didn't really have that same impact. I think maybe because the movie on a whole was not very compelling, now that I've been able to see it with an adult mindset. And there were points where Kong was just a little too cute that it was just, it didn't work for me, honestly. So, Son of Kong, it's not a terrible movie, but compared to the masterpiece that is King Kong, it is a massive, massive step down. So the best I can say about this movie is to watch it at your own risk. You'll find some amusing parts in it, and watching Carl Denham kind of go through his own character development to be a better guy is fun to watch, but on a whole, it's just very underwhelming. It feels more like something that would have been suited for TV, not an actual theatrical release. So it is a disappointing movie, but not the worst movie that involves King Kong at all. And that's my review for Son of Kong. Next time, we're actually going to be taking a slight detour and talking about Mighty Joe Young. This is a movie that has nothing to do with King Kong, but I have my reasons why I'm reviewing it, along with the other Kong movies. So you'll have to wait until the review to find out why I'm reviewing Mighty Joe Young. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on Son of Kong, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there's only one.